This came about after years and years of reading state rail plans. For folks that don't know, every state is required by the U.S. Department of Transportation to submit a rail plan, typically an update of a previous rail plan every 4 years. And what we have found and talked about prior to being asked by this Nevada DOT to author their plan is that in every case, these plans are done without much relevance to the private sector. They're done in a way that the consulting firm takes inventory of the rail lines that are in a state and reports on some data, typically all rail-related data, and uses the data projections to determine what's going to be in the future. And there's very little thought to what actually do we consciously want to bring about in the modal balance between rail and truck, and how do we create an action plan? So these state rail plans are really not plans. They're more like reports and projections based on past data. So we found, one, we conceived of a new action planning approach that brings all the parties in the private sector and the public sector together to plan around what are the real business and supply chain needs and opportunities that could be advanced in a state if the rail infrastructure was actually built out to serve those opportunities, and what would the government's role be in bringing resources, but not necessarily funding it, because we've based this approach on what's commercially viable. And commercially viable approaches don't need the government to fund. If they're commercially viable, there's plenty of money in the private sector.